Hi, welcome to Carswell's Customs. I'm Christopher. I wanted to do some tuning videos, and I've got my charger here that I got from a police auction. My daughter and I painted it, and then I also cut the mufflers off, welded on a double X pipe for some reason, I don't know, then added a tune. The tune's been active for about 8 months, and I'm super happy with it. So I want to go ahead and share that here, so let's get started. We'll start right here on the first tab, General. Displacement. So I changed the displacement from 5.7 to 6 liter because that kind of what that does is disables the traction control. I like to, it's all-wheel drive car, and I like in the wintertime to be able to hit it and slide it around corners without the computers jumping in and cutting out my power. So if you want to, if you want to just leave that alone, that's fine. If you do change this, you're going to notice some warning signs come up on your dash. It'll say ABS and traction control and flash and show you a bunch of warning signs. But anyway, I like the traction control off. You'll have to excuse me. I am sick, but I do want to get some videos going, so I'm just going to push through. Let's see. Idle. Didn't touch too much in the idle area. So let's talk about FA Stosh, or Stosh. Stosh is a measurement of air and fuel where complete combustion occurs, also known as like 14 to 1 in air-fuel ratio. So Dodges use fuel-air ratio, which is the inverse of air-fuel, and it's shown here as 0.0714. So to go from fuel-air ratio to air-fuel ratio, we'll have to divide 0.0714 by 1. Comes out to about 14 to 1. And so why did I choose 14 to 1? Well, up here in the north, fuel has 10% ethanol added to it. So that reduces the Stosh AFR, or air fuel ratio. And in hot rods, a little extra fuel at idle doesn't hurt. So adding or using a 14 to 1 air fuel ratio, in my experience on all the hot rods that I tune, doesn't seem to hurt or have any negative effects. All right, so O2 sensors, nothing. All right, so PE, or power enrichment. So this is under the delay, VSS min. So above this vehicle speed, a delay is active. So I don't want a delay in my power enrichment, so I put it above 127 miles an hour. RPM max as well. So this is the delay RPM. So above this RPM, the delay is disabled. So we're talking about power enrichment delay. So I don't want it to delay anything, so it is disabled above 0 miles an hour. So enrichment rate, FA increase. So if we go to the stock rate, it's 0.005, and 0.006 is just a more aggressive ramp rate, or the rate in which the fuel enrichment happens. All right, so power enrichment, air charge. This table here shows 0.0119. That's a modifier to our original fuel-air ratio that we set. So I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the way. And we'll go back to General, FA Stosh, 0.0714. So 0.0714 plus our modifier, is 0.0119. 0.0119. All right, that'll come out to 0.0833. Now, to go from, write this down real quick here. To go from fuel air to air fuel, we divide this decimal number by 1. Okay, so, oops, 0.0833 divided by 1. There we go. 1 divided by 0.0833. That gives us a 12 to 1 air-fuel ratio based on the stoche that we put in back on our very first general tab. FA stoche, 0.0714. Power enrichment adds 0.0119 of fuel air to our stoche, which becomes our power enrichment. All right, so back to power enrich, PR ratio, and same thing. I went ahead and 0.0119. I like 12 to 1, it works. And there we go. So temp control FA enrich max. Go ahead and zero that table out. It's for the catalyst protection, your catalytic converters. Keep them from overheating, or you can leave it alone. Cutoff or deceleration fuel cutoff. I went ahead and raised the RPM to 6,500, so I don't get deceleration fuel cutoff. So cutoff above 6,500 RPM, so that pretty much negates the deceleration fuel cutoff. Auto stick first as well, 6,500 RPMs. So now this is RPM limits if you want to free rev your engine, which I like to do. 5,000 RPMs, it'll go to 5,000. Stock is set at 3,800. Drive as well. Max RPMs. Stock is 5,000. I put that to 6,500. And auto stick, 5,800 to 6,500. Maximum allowed engine speed, 6,500. So. All right, so multi-displacement system is disabled here. So that's when it goes from V8 to V4 cylinder, and then VSS min, 122 miles an hour is the minimum speed for MDS to be enabled if it was enabled. But with any setting, I like to disable it in a couple different places, so the computer doesn't get confused. All right, let's go to Spark here. All right, so here's a Spark table, and I've modded this a little bit. I've smoothed it. You can see from the stock view here, there's a lot of negatives in the Spark table. So I just pulled those out and put them to +5. So if for some reason the engine gets into this area, it isn't seeing a negative spark. All of these are Spark tables as well. Now if you want, you can go ahead and send me an email and request my tune here, and you can grab these Spark tables for me, or you can just take a look at this and set your set these numbers here, and then just use your interpolate and blends and smooths to bring these into an agreeable state. You can see how the spark ramps up. It's a little choppy here for sure, but you can smooth that up really nice. The stock is all over the place with negatives and this and that. So the wide open throttle, I did, you can see that when you're up here in the RPMs, I did pull some spark out of the higher RPMs. You can see I'm at about 15 degrees total advance. I did take the negatives out again out of this lower RPM area, and then reduce the total amount of spark that's up here in the higher RPMs. So when you're messing with these spark tables, you have to go ahead and make sure that the spark tables match, so that it's not pulling one spark command from one table and then having in a different situation, have a different spark command from another table. So I match these tables up here. The part throttle intake calibrated, part throttle spark calibrated VVT, exhaust max, and let's see here. So how I like to do that is I'll pop one of these open Excel file, and then just hit Control C, and then Control C, and then Control V. That's one way I like to take a look here. That'll give you the table, and so you can compare it. And I also will, just for easier reference, take my little snip here, bring that up. So that way I've got part throttle spark calibrated VVT, and we'll go to this one. So then I'll take a look here and verify that those two tables are correct or similar, and then we'll go from there. So go through your tables here that are identified and make sure that they're as close as possible to each other. Now you will get tripped up with part throttle base, and then wide open throttle base. So that way we. So you take a look here that 0.08 all the way down to 0.9. Well, the wide open throttle spark starts at 0.35. So you can't just copy paste the whole thing. You've got to go from 0.35 and drag your values over, and then run it down like smooth between vertical bounds, and make sure that that occurs between the 0.35 over here in the wide open spark down to 0.90 in the air charge. So I've copied and pasted, and then found out later that, oh geez, these two tables are not the same. So anyhow, sparks vary in depth. Just try to make sure that you're not adding extra spark over the factory. I always pull a little bit from the factory max, or if the factory has big negative spark tables or negative spark values in the table, I just smooth those out to something small, like 5 or 10 or something like that. So anyway. Okay, so this is an interesting thing I'd read on a forum about the. Go ahead and zero out your. Gosh, this is very annoying. Stay maximized, please. Zero out your barometric pressure. Your part throttle reference IAT, 118 degrees Fahrenheit. There's some function or some thought process behind this 118 degrees. So as I understand it, 118 degrees is the start point where if the intake air temperature starts getting hotter than 118 degrees, it'll start pulling spark. And you can see that the stock values are 86 degrees. And if you've been under the engine compartment of any car, it's pretty hot under there to begin with. So I raised that up. I had read somewhere that the thought process behind it makes logical sense to me. So I raised that point up to where you'll start slowly pulling spark after this 118 degrees based on a modifier inside the computer. I believe that was a better idea than at 86 degrees. So there we go. So transient tip-in throttle spark. This is how much spark is pulled when you hammer it, right? Keep you safe from a car that's too powerful. The automakers are going to save us all by pulling spark here when we hammer the throttle. Well, we'll go ahead and reduce that amount of spark that's pulled so you can get more hit off the line. Okay, so that'll take care of the first advanced portion of spark. We'll roll into retard. Nope. Let's see. All right, none of that. So let's move on to torque models and torque management. So, transmission torque management. What do you want to use to help reduce the impact or shock into your transmission? So do you want to use spark? I do. Do I want to use fuel cutoff? No. Do I want to use electronic throttle control? No, I don't. You can see on the stock settings, everything's enabled. I just prefer to use spark. So again, these are just the tools that the computer uses to decrease the torque during shifts. So, right, I just use spark, and that's good enough for me. I mean, I'm not sure that you need all of these values to soften the blow from a transmission shifting from first to second gear. Spark usually cuts enough engine torque to prolong transmission life. So, desired torque. How are we going to manage our max pedal torque mode table? So we're going to go ahead and hit this table, which is the maximum flywheel torque. This is the maximum torque that the computer is expecting the engine to make in a situation. Okay, so if we look at the stock values for flywheel torque at 4,400 RPMs, 385 foot-pounds of torque at the flywheel, that's pretty accurate. So unless you put some bolt-ons on and you have a way to actually measure your power output, and it's actually on a dyno and you can see that your power is more than this, don't mess with it, because the computer itself makes a lot of decisions based on this. So don't put like 900 horse in it, or the computer will be expecting 900 horse and change a bunch of parameters that match it. So if you're fond of saying you've got 1,000 horse Charger, go ahead and lie to your buddies, but don't lie in this chart. So this is stock settings, all right? And then, I'll have a tune in this, and then I'll have, catback exhaust. So I just multiply these tables by like 20% or 30% and see what you come up with. Even these numbers I have probably overestimate the amount of horsepower that the vehicle's making at the flywheel, but again, only 20%, 30% values aren't going to get you into trouble, but kind of stick there. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to transmission. All right, so TCM RPM limit, it was initially set at 5,600. These engines can spin pretty good, and so I would raise it up quite a bit. I think this has something to do with the limp mode. So I raised mine to 8,000. I haven't hit the limp mode function yet, so that's that. All right, so shift scheduling. My 1-2 shift, I like all of I really like the transmission that's in the car. And the shift scheduling is really good, at least in the police version. But it just wanted to shift out of first gear at like 5 miles an hour. It was going right into second gear, and it was terrible. So I went ahead and looked at this 1-2 shift, right? So this is accelerator pedal position, and this is the output shaft speed, okay? So accelerator position on top and the output shaft speed. Now normally, other tables I've modded for shift speed are based on miles per hour. So I don't really know a ton about how this equates to. So what I did was I took the numbers and then I just multiplied them by a multiplier, like 10% or 20%. So yeah, we've got at 42 miles an hour, the output shaft speed's 555, stock is 480, right? So 86. So that looks to be about 14% increase in speed. Let's do it the right way here. So 15, yeah. So 15% increase is what I went from in the 42 miler. So I blocked the whole thing and went 15%. Performance as well. Here's the stock amounts, and then so when you got your foot in it, your accelerator pedal, I went ahead and modded that too. Okay, wide open throttle upshift, 1 to 2. Again, the rest of the shifts I'm really happy with. Transmission's great. So, but 1 to 2, output shaft RPM. Again, I just increased that a little bit. All right, fill pressure. So this is going to affect your shift firmness. Looks like I'm in bar right now, so let's go ahead and go to PSI. All right, so the stock values are 20, right, for K1, K2, K3, yeah, who cares? So let's just go to 23 from 20. I think this was 15%. I increased this. 23 divided by 20. Yeah. So increase these values by 15%, 10%, 15%, and take a look and just take it out for a drive and see how it feels. This stuff's going to be based on feel. So you enjoy it, a little bit firmer shift, take her up to 15% more PSI and go from there. And that's going to be a common theme throughout the tuning here. Add 10, 5, 10, 15% and see what kind of modification you've made, and then go back to the starters. And if you like it firmer, throw more at it. All right, 2,800 milliseconds or 1,000 milliseconds. Most of the transmissions I've tuned, GM, Ford, Dodge, whatever, like about a second shift time frame. I use pretty much a second on everything I tune as a starting point. So, torque converter. Now, this is my favorite thing to modify on recent hot rods because you can really get some performance out of this thing by getting some slip out of the lower gears. All right, so accelerator, pedal position on top, and the apply speed. Let's look at the stock settings, and whoa, right? So at 100% throttle pedal position, it's going to apply at 1,300, 1,400 RPM. So these torque converters are set from the factory with a very low, we call it stall speed or apply speed, because it helps with fuel economy. So you get the idea. But to have the converter looser, it allows that engine to run up into the engine power band a lot faster. So this seems kind of extreme, but it took a while to get to that piece because I believe that's the maximum, isn't it? Ooh. Yeah, 3825. So this came from working with these numbers, going out and just hammering the car and seeing where it felt the best. And so first gear, 3825 seemed to work the best. So it let that first gear slip. Second gear, same thing, 3825. Third gear, looks like I was a little bit more conservative. And fourth gear, 63. And even fifth gears, there's some slip. So again, take these numbers and throw them into your car. If you don't like how aggressive they are, try something a little lighter, a little easier, and go from there. I like these. They seem to work real well for me. Torque management. Here we go. Max engine torque, 475 from the stock of 443. So I cut the mufflers off, and hopefully I gain some horsepower there and not just noise, even though it's fine if I just gain noise. That's cool too. But okay, so upshift torque reduction for the 1-2 shift. So let's go ahead and take a look here at stock. So you're going to look at engine torque here and then output speed RPM. So at 1470 RPM and 300 foot-pounds of torque, it's going to pull 170 foot-pounds out, right, when it's going to go ahead and make a shift. So there were some numbers thrown around on a couple forums, and I came up with this. I didn't come up with it. I read somebody had put 74 in and then interpolated both ways and smoothed things out. So this has been really good for me for the 1-2 shift on how much torque is pulled when the transmission will shift. And this is very, very nice for, I think, a street-driven, non-race car hot rod. So I like this. That's 1-2. 2-3, again, there's just so much torque pulled out during the shift. I do want some torque pulled out. I want the transmission to last a long time, but I mean, hey, 150 foot-pounds of torque to make a shift? No, we're not going to do that. And then you do see the scheduling gets lower, like 89 foot-pounds for the, what was that, 3 to 4? Yeah, 3 to 4 shift. But still way too much. Okay, so that's what I've got for my torque reduction on the shifts. And I'm sure you could go more aggressive if you'd like to, but I don't know, it works for me. All right, so that's about it for the 2017 Police Charger with the 5.7 Hemi and the NAG1 or the W5A580 transmission. If you have any questions, go ahead and post them in the comment section so we can share information. Don't send me an email asking questions, ask it in the comment. Doing this to try to share information and help everybody out. So go ahead and contribute to that knowledge transfer. But if you do want the tune here, the tune file itself, so you can take a look at it, just go ahead and email it to me. It'll be in the description as well. So thanks a lot. We're going to continue on. The next one will probably be an EcoBoost engine and transmission tune. So stay tuned for that. And I'm just going to go through all of my tune files and post them all up. So thanks again. We'll see you.